Okay, let us make a custom UltraBeat sampler instrument. Let's start from scratch. We're going to open Logic Pro. From here, we're going to start with an empty project. If we want, we can flip down the details and kind of take a look at some of the settings just so that we're more aware of what's happening with our project once we hit that choose button. But for sure on this screen, we are going to want to go drums, UltraBeat drum machine, stereo, and make sure we have at least one of those because that's what we're doing. We're making a custom UltraBeat. I would say it's a pretty good idea to go ahead and save this project. So I'm going to go ahead and choose Save As before I begin. And instead of saving it in my Logic folder, which by the way, yours might look like this, go ahead and click that arrow to just get a better sense of where it's going. I always think the Logic folder gets buried a little bit too much, so if I know that's where it's going, it's okay, but do take a look at that. So I'm going to go ahead and just name this project before I begin. And then I want to make sure that I copy audio files, and I want to leave this, check this box that says copy UltraBeat audio data. And later we're going to find out how important it is to have that checked, but obviously not that important now. Always a good idea to save your projects right away because in case there's a crash or something, you'll be able to not lose your work. So depending on how your Logic window opens, you may or may not see all of these things that I see now. So let's just practice a few shortcuts. X is a favorite shortcut in Logic because that opens the mixer. So I'm going to just go ahead and click these buttons to close this down. And then X opens the mixer, and I want to recognize that I'm dealing with some channel strips here that look real similar to the channel strips in the studio. So naturally, as I work my way from top to bottom, I'll sort of find out what exactly it is that's feeding the signal in that channel strip, because that's kind of first things first. We're going to work our way from top to bottom to find things out. So kind of the first thing you see at the top next to input is that software instrument slot. You know, that is the insert effect for that software instrument, if you will. So there's a few different ways we can click on that. We can click this little drop down arrow there, and we can swap out to some different things. We can turn it on and off by accident, usually on there, not necessarily on purpose. Or if we click square in the middle, of course, we're going to open up the UltraBeat window. And so the first thing that I want to recognize about the UltraBeat is that we're not going to use half of the things on the UltraBeat here. Not even half. We're going to use just a few things on this UltraBeat. So as we look at this, it's like, wow, this is kind of overwhelming for non-musicians in particular. Don't worry about it. We're not really going to use that. So every UltraBeat instance is going to open with this sort of default preset. So if I see this drop down here, this is called the default preset. So if I want to kind of hear what it already has, I can click this play button down here. And you know, that gives me a sense of that particular drum kit sound. So what we're going to do is we're going to use samples that we have created in a different Logic project, and we have bounced them as their own individual sounds. So I'm going to go ahead and Command Tab over to the Finder. I'm going to open a new Finder window. I'm going to hit Command Shift D so that I can go to the desktop, and that's where I'm going to find the folder of samples that I have created there. So that is ready for me there, and I'm going to go back to the UltraBeat because I am going to kind of want those side by side in just a second. So the first thing I need to do really is clear out the existing samples. And if we remember, a sample is an individually recorded audio snippet, if you will. And then a patch is when those samples are collected together into a drum kit in this case. So I want to clear out this patch. I want to clear out all the samples, and I want to start fresh. So the way I'm going to do that is I am going to go to the patch selection drop down. I'm going to go to the drum kits selection, and then I'm going to choose drag and drop samples. And as I do that, I want to look at all these little slots here and kind of watch them disappear as soon as I choose drag and drop samples. So basically what had happened is now this is empty. So when I click this little play button, there's nothing to play because this is completely empty. So each one of these blue rectangles represents kind of a different row in the sampler instrument here. And the gray box up the side represents the MIDI keyboard, starting down at a low C, and this of course is going to go up chromatically here. And that's going to line up to the keys on the keyboard. So the musicians in the group can kind of start to become aware of like how they might perform this instrument that we are about to create by putting our samples into the UltraBeat. So here's my folder of samples, and I don't necessarily need to hear them, but a quick way to do that is to hit the space bar and then the up and down arrows. Okay, so that's kind of a handy way to do it without having to open things and without having to close things. Just a space bar will open and close things for a quick view. I'm going to go ahead and drag these into each of these sample spots 1 through 9, and I'm just going to do them in order top to bottom. So as I pick up this sample, and again, you do have to have your windows kind of side by side here. So if I happen to click on Logic, it's like, oh no, Command Tab to the Finder and go ahead and get that Finder window to open up on top of Logic. So I'm going to take that first sample, I'm going to click and I'm going to drag it, and as you see, as I hover over this, it sort of highlights that area, and then I'm going to go ahead and let go. And now I see a little bit of a waveform display, and then I'm going to double click on the row that I just added that to and go ahead and give it a name. And if I click this and hold it, needless to say, it will not play the full sample unless I hold that button down a little bit longer. That gives me a sense of that first sample. Okay, now I'm going to select the next row up, and I'm going to drag that sample in. Again, as I go, I am going to name these as I work my way up. Okay, so now I have all 9 samples added into there. I can go ahead and close the Finder window. I'm going to go ahead and go back to my Logic project and choose Save because I've already saved it. But then I'm going to do one more thing with the actual sampler instrument itself, and I am going to go to the patch dropdown, and then I'm going to choose Save As because I actually want to save this as a custom UltraBeat that I've made. So we'll call this Custom Samples UltraBeat. And again, yours might look like this when you go to save it. That doesn't give you a lot of information, so I always like to sort of explore a little bit and see like where exactly is this going. Plugin settings, audio music apps, music in my home folder. So this is buried someplace deep that you're never gonna kind of stumble across that unless you're inside an UltraBeat, and then you should be able to open that later. What I'm going to do now as I look at this is I'm going to click this full view button at the end. This is going to get us into something called a step sequencer. And so inside here, we can sort of click along this grid and sort of add different add those notes to be articulated and hit, if you will. So I'm going to right click on there, and then I'm going to choose create and replace randomly. So we're sort of going to create a crazy pattern that makes no sense and is probably going to sound chaotic and terrible. And possibly not all that helpful for your project, except to maybe maybe give you a little bit of inspiration for what this could possibly sound like as a beat. So I'm going to hit this play button here. Nice. Okay, so that doesn't sound quite as chaotic as we might have thought originally, but you could see how I could go in there. I could highlight a line. I could decide, oh, I don't like, that's too many. It's too many in a row there, so I'm gonna, turn this off or whatever. So a person could get into that and create a unique beat just by doing that. Let's turn off that full view. Let's go back to here and let's switch this over into the arrange region. Now this is one of the Logic Pro does not really help you out when it comes to this. So let's say we're ready to sort of turn this around into an arrange project. By the way, I'm going to click that back to voice down there. We want to put this in a project. We want this to be like sort of the full beat that we're working with. Now, musicians know that you can certainly record this just like any software instrument, but for non-musicians, like how we might dabble with this and get some sounds happening and that sort of thing is to use that step sequencer. And then, like I said, this is one of the things that's like least obvious in Logic. So down here in the bottom left-hand corner, there's an odd little box, and if you hover your mouse over it, it says drag to arrange window. So I click and hold on this, and I pick it up and drag it to the arrange window and let go. Now what I have in the arrange window in that green area is a MIDI region that represents the same as this pattern here. So I can actually create more patterns inside this pattern selector. So as I work my way down here, I can actually kind of clear out patterns and get into other things. So that's an interesting way to sort of stack things up and create things. Again, if you're a non-musician, you can do things this way, and then each time you're going to drag that into the arrange window. So now as I let go, of course, there's nothing there, so there's nothing in the arrange window. So a little way of looking at the way a step sequencer looks and the way MIDI information looks in the arrange area of Logic. So there's one more thing that I want to do with the UltraBeat before I click this little close button here. There's a little power button that turns on as soon as you start to use that sequencer. And what that does is that means that anytime I hit the play button, it'll play the MIDI region, assuming you have it on the right instrument. I made a mistake by dragging that to instrument 2. What I needed to have it on was have it on this custom UltraBeat. So in fact, I should delete that one that I wasn't really using. So brace yourself. We're going to close this out. We're going to hit play. Okay, you see it stops when it stops. Same things apply with other regions here. I can grab hold of that and I can loop it out. I can adjust the length of it that way. I can tap the letter L and that will loop it out. Those are just a few things about the custom UltraBeat sampler. Check it out. Let me know if you have any questions, and we will talk to you again soon.